Welcome to Airplay Escape. You can now support me by joining my Patreon account and also gaining access to the full audiobooks. The link is on the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Luffy Awakens, Sun God rises to Pirate King. Episode 1. Crossing into Luffy, there are still 2 months before going to sea, you have to become stronger. Lying on a cliff, looking at the blue sky, the seagulls soaring, and listening to the sound of the waves, Luffy felt good. When I woke up, I found that I had crossed into the world of pirates and became Luffy. The memories of the two merged and their personalities merged. Knowing everything that will happen in the future, making changes is inevitable, but it takes strength to make changes. Ding! The teaching space system is turned on. Luffy's eyes lit up, and the golden finger came. Soon, Luffy understood, and his eyes lit up. Amazing. Luffy quickly learned that this teaching space gold finger really satisfied his thoughts. 1 year of cultivation inside, the outside is equivalent to 1 month in the past, and the age is only increased by 1 month. A person can only cultivate for 2 months at most, that is, 2 years in it. Although it is short-lived, there are various teaching templates that you can choose from. Luffy disappeared in the next instant, because he entered the teaching space. The environment in this space is harsh, and it has 10 times the gravity, like a spiritual bookstore in Dragon Ball. Such a cultivation environment is an excellent multiplier effect. It's so heavy, Entering the endless blank world, Luffy couldn't help bending down. It was very heavy, and it was difficult to breathe, but his heart was excited, so it was interesting. With a thought, Luffy chose Rayleigh's teaching template. In the next moment, the illusory Hades Rayleigh appeared and began to teach and explain domineering. This is another powerful feature of the teaching space. You can choose a teaching template, teach yourself, and choose 2 at most. Luffy began to listen carefully, thinking to himself, let Unreal Rayleigh teach me for a year, and let Unreal Roger teach me for another year. Illusory teaching template, can only teach, cannot talk about other. In this way, Luffy began to practice in the teaching space. Luffy is happy in his heart, so that when he encounters Zoro, Nami, and Sanji in the future, he can also let them enter the practice. That way, the future won't go the way you know it. Especially, the ending of the war on top. 2 months later, Luffy appeared in Windmill Village. The momentum is completely different from before, with cross scars on the upper body. Luffy set foot on the small wooden boat that he had already prepared, and started the sea adventure. Everyone, bye. Luffy turned to face the village chief of the Windmill Village by the shore. Makino and the others waved goodbye, grinned, revealing a row of big white teeth. Watching Luffy go away, Makino sighed, we're finally gone, village chief, our Windmill Village will be deserted. The village chief was helpless. It's a shame for the village to actually want to be a pirate. Even so, they were happy for Luffy, and everyone who came to the shore had a sincere smile on their faces. The sky is blue, the sky is clear, and the seagulls are flying. Luffy was in a good mood and praised, today is really a good day to go to sea. Whoa. Suddenly, the sea water rose behind him, and a behemoth with blood-red eyes emerged from behind. Luffy knew that it was that guy, the king of the sea. The king of the near sea suddenly opened his big mouth. Not to mention Luffy, even if it was a wooden boat, this big mouth could hold 10. And Luffy didn't turn around, didn't raise his hand or even make a fist. On the shore, the village chief, Makino, and the others turned pale in shock. It's the king of the sea. Luffy will be alright. But, why do you turn your back to the king of the sea and don't plan to do anything? Luffy said confidently before that he shouldn't be swallowed. Luffy. Hurry up. Makino, the village chief and the others looked worried and exclaimed. The king of the near sea swooped down with a big mouth, and was about to swallow Luffy. At this time, Luffy moved slightly. The face turned to the left and slightly to the side. The face under the straw hat suddenly became domineering, low, and there was a faint flash of red light in the cold left eye, which was very shocking. Roll. Suddenly, the king of the sea was frozen, his bloody mouth opened wide, he didn't dare to move forward any further, his whole body was dripping with sweat instantly, his blood-red eyes were bloodshot, he was terrified and shivered. Boom, clap la la. With a thud, the sea water splashed, and the king of the near sea was stunned and fell into the seabed. Luffy didn't look any further and continued to sail forward. At the entrance of the village, Makino and the village chief were stunned. What's going on? Makino shook, thinking of that person. In the moment just now, I seemed to see the shadow of that person. The village chief was shocked. Shanks? The reason why the king of the near sea fainted was because just now, Luffy's tyrannical look was awe-inspiring. After 2 years of hard training in the teaching space, now Luffy is extremely powerful. Cultivation in the teaching space is more effective than cultivation in Rascana Island. 7 days later, on a tourist boat, there is a banquet. Suddenly, everyone panicked, because they saw the pirate ship approaching, and the pirate flag had a red heart on its skull. The pirate ship immediately bombarded, and the bombing continued. On the banquet ship, the orange short-haired girl is happy, and on the pirate ship, there is treasure. She is Nami. Soon, the pirates took down the banquet boat. The pirate captain at the head is a female pirate, fat, ugly, freckled, carrying an iron rod, looking very vicious. She is a female pirate, Arita. Alrita looked at Kirby, who was short, with short pink hair and glasses, who looked cowardly, and asked, Kirby, let me ask you. Who is the most beautiful in this sea? When Kirby was about to answer against his will, with a bang, a figure appeared. It landed on the deck of the ship and made a sound, and everyone noticed. They followed the sound, and the sound had already sounded. You need a mirror. Alrita frowned. What do you mean? Luffy said bluntly, I don't know who is the most beautiful in the sea, but you should be the ugliest. In an instant, Alrita was furious. Kirby's face changed greatly, and he cast a worried look. It's over, he's going to finish. Call. The iron rod in Alrita's hand whistled down, but Luffy didn't look at it, but touched his stomach. This made Alrita sneer, really looking for a beating. Boom. Click. However, the iron rod fell on the deck, which made Arita stunned. Kirby was also stunned, and rubbed his eyes, thinking he was dazzled. Didn't hit it? Arita didn't believe in evil, and waved it quickly, but Luffy didn't even look at it. His body moved slightly, but he avoided all of it. Luffy was impatient. I'm so hungry, I won't play with you anymore. Boom. With a random punch, Arita flew directly to the distant sky. The other pirates were stunned and jumped into the sea to flee. Kirby was at a loss. Luffy said, you were caught by them, you are not like a pirate at all, just stay. Kirby was extremely grateful and bowed his thanks. Thank you, my name is Kirby. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. Episode 2. After Luffy met Kirby, they went to the restaurant. The people on the boat are naturally warm and welcoming. Thank you so much, without you, we'd be doomed. This is the banquet we prepared just now. We haven't eaten it yet. Let's start now, please. Luffy sat down and couldn't wait, then I'll be welcome. The others also sat down one after another. But when they were about to pick up the chopsticks, they were stunned for the next scene. I saw that Luffy took a big mouth. Instead of eating, he poured all kinds of food directly into it and quickly cleaned the food on the 10-meter-long table. It's delicious. Is the stomach a bottomless pit? It's too soon, it's almost finished. Before starting to eat, the food on the table was almost finished. Luffy was very satisfied. He touched his propped stomach, leaned on the back of the chair, and had a look of enjoyment on his face. Wow, it's delicious, I'm full. The others and Kirby were still shaking, unbelievable. After eating and drinking, Luffy was ready to leave. Kirby followed and said embarrassedly, well, Mr. Luffy, can you take me a little way? Luffy nodded. Of course, it's boring to be alone. Thank you, Mr. Luffy. Kirby was very grateful. Luffy indirectly saved himself and allowed himself to escape from the clutches. He was extremely grateful and kept in mind. Kirby is in charge of the rowing, which is a little reward he can do. Kirby was curious. Mr. Luffy, what are you going to sea for? Luffy grinned, revealing a row of big white teeth. I want to be the Pirate King. What? Kirby was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Be the Pirate King? Are you serious? Certainly. In other words, Mr. Luffy, are you a pirate? Right. What about your companion? I just went to sea for a few days, and my companion is looking for it. Kirby still finds it unbelievable, even a fantasy. Kirby emphasized, One Piece is a big treasure with wealth, power, and fame, which has the title of people all over the world. One Piece is the goal. Luffy said indifferently, yeah. Kirby thought it was too difficult, but pirates all over the world are looking for that treasure. Mr. Luffy, it's impossible. How can it be possible to stand on the top of the sea? Impossible, impossible. Luffy punched Kobe on the head, and Kobe lay on the deck, puzzled. Mr. Luffy, why are you beating me? I can't help but want to beat you, you guy. You always shout that it's impossible. It's not good. I want to be, so I have to be. If you make up your mind to be the Pirate King, you must do it. Kirby looked at Luffy's expression. His eyes gradually became worship. Luffy was very serious. Kirby stood up and his expression became firm. Mr. Luffy, I also want to do. I want to be a navy. Luffy smiled, then go for it. Yeah. Mr. Luffy, let's do our best. Luffy had a goal and his expression became firm. However, Kirby felt that what Luffy was going to do was more dangerous. Mr. Luffy, you must enter the Great Route, which is the grave of the pirates. Well, companions are essential. There is a pirate hunter. Sauron, I know, he is as terrifying as a beast. Luffy looks forward to, although I haven't met him yet, I also know him, and I want him to be my partner. After one day, naval base. Luffy and Kirby are here. Luffy looked forward to it in his heart. Sauron, we are going to meet. Walking in the town, Luffy ate all kinds of fruits on both sides of the town and asked the people in the shop. That Sauron, is he at the naval base in the town now? For a moment, everyone around was scared away. Luffy is helpless, then let's see, you want to be a navy, just right. Soon, Luffy and Kirby came to the outside of the naval base execution ground. It should be in there. Looking at the wall, Luffy punched at will, and with a bang, the wall collapsed. Kirby's expression was complicated. Mr. Luffy, this is too loud. Luffy didn't care. It's okay, in a hurry. Just as Luffy and Kirby were about to enter, Luffy glanced behind him and saw a little girl approaching with rice balls in her hands. Thank you, I don't have to struggle over the wall. After the little girl thanked Luffy, she ran quickly into the execution ground. Luffy remembered that her name was Rika, the daughter of a bar owner in Baker Town, a small island in the naval base. Kirby worried, Mr. Luffy, do you need to save the little girl? He is approaching the terrifying beast-like pirate hunter. It's alright, let's see. Li Jia rewarded the rice ball and handed it out. Big brother, you haven't eaten all the time. This rice ball is for you. Although it is the first time to make it, it should be alright. Zoro said coldly, I'm not hungry, you're an eyesore, go back quickly. If you don't leave, be careful I'll beat you. At this time, 10 sea soldiers with guns came quickly, obviously because of the movement just now. Do you want to save people? Shoot. The 10 Marines immediately raised their guns and shot, which made Zoro's face change greatly. Flick away. Zoro was so anxious that he wanted to do it himself, but it was too late. Whoosh. Suddenly, Luffy swept over, raised his right hand and quickly grabbed a head, bringing up an afterimage. After the shooting ended, Luffy and Rika were fine. Luffy spread his right hand, and the bullets in his hand fell to the ground. Zoro's eyes widened, his heart trembled. The 10 sailors froze. How is it possible? Shoot, shoot. They panicked and wanted to be too strong to shoot again, but with a look from Luffy, the domineering shock, the 10 Marines rolled their eyes and fell to the ground. This scene made Sauron even more shocked, even beyond his cognition. What did this do? Why did 10 sailors suddenly faint? Looking at Zoro, who was shaking, Luffy grinned and said, don't be too surprised, you will understand later, and you will become stronger soon. Sauron was inexplicable when he heard this. Do you want to get stronger, but soon? It takes hard work and time to become stronger. Quick, what a joke. Facing Zoro who was bound, Luffy said bluntly, I'll help you untie the rope, you can be my first companion. Episode 3. After that, Luffy went to get Zoro's 3 knives. Meanwhile, the execution ground was surrounded by Marines. Luffy handed the 3 knives to Zoro, which was very meaningful. Fighting side by side with me here will become an existence against the world government, the enemy of the Navy. Or you will be killed by the Navy, which do you think is better? The bound Zoro felt good about Luffy and was also interested. Forget it, instead of dying here, it's better to be a pirate. Luffy was happy and raised his hands to cheer. Great, you are willing to be my partner. Zoro was helpless. If you understand it, quickly help me untie the rope. Luffy untied the rope for Zoro. Zoro looked firm and opened his mouth. Follow you to become a pirate, but my goal will be carried through to the end. Luffy naturally knew what Zoro's goal was. Zoro is firm. I want to become the world's greatest swordsman. Luffy nodded in admiration. The world's greatest swordsman, yes, as a partner of One Piece, you have to do this. At this time, a burly man with short blonde hair, dark complexion, and a giant axe in his right arm walked over. It was a Navy colonel, Monka. However, Luffy ignored him and said to Zoro, let's go. After the words fell, Luffy walked straight towards the sea soldiers. This Zoro was startled for a moment, already holding a knife in both hands, biting one in his mouth, ready to go out, but Luffy just walked out like no one? Thinking of the strength that Luffy showed before, Zoro received it. 3 knives straddled his waist and followed, and Kirby also quickly followed. Monka was angry and despised himself so much. Straw Hat Boy, I'm a Navy colonel, axe Monka. How dare you look down on me like this? However, just as Minka was about to start, suddenly, Luffy burst out with a domineering look, and the dark red overlord color burst out. Bang bang bang. In an instant, nearly 100 sailors fell to the ground in unison, rolling their eyes and fainting. Even Monka was sweating all over his body, his eyes widened, and his burly body knelt on one knee, terrified. How is it possible? Zoro and KB behind him were stunned. This was too terrifying. What did this do? Since he wanted to be a pirate, he would become an enemy with the Navy, and Zoro killed Monka with one sword. The 3 of Luffy left the naval base and were hungry, so they went to the town restaurant for a big meal. While eating, Zoro was curious. What did you do just now? Obviously you didn't do anything. They all fell down. It's okay for the Navy to fall, but even Minka's strength has fallen, which is unbelievable. Luffy didn't answer. It will be unclear for a while, but you will know soon. Zoro didn't ask any more questions. He fell into deep thought. His captain was too powerful. The Navy and Minka just now couldn't let Luffy show his strength, so Zoro didn't know how strong Luffy was. But, maybe a lot stronger than himself. And yourself, you can't be too bad. Luffy could see Zoro's thoughts, and seeing his increasingly determined expression, he obviously wanted to fight harder. Luffy said, Sauron, soon, you will be very strong, and you will be one step closer to becoming the world's greatest swordsman. This made Zoro startled and smiled. What are you kidding? Becoming the world's #1 swordsman is not that easy. Soon? Impossible in the short term. Luffy smiled mysteriously. Soon, you will understand. After speaking, Luffy continued to eat. Zoro looked surprised and puzzled. I've been hungry for a long time, but you can't eat it. Hee, it's delicious. After that, Luffy and Zoro left, and as for Kirby, he was beaten by Luffy. Otherwise, it will be considered an accomplice by the Navy. Kirby naturally joined the Navy. Looking at the ship going away at sea, Kirby was grateful and determined. Mr. Luffy, I won't let you down. 3 days later, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Wearing a seagull cap, with a long black beard tied into a twisted chin, Sengoku sat at the desk, looking at the reported information. When he saw a message, Sengoku was shocked. About 17 years old, overbearing and domineering. Monka will be affected. This warring state's face was already full of shock and disbelief. Finally, seeing the name, the corners of Sengoku's mouth twitched. Monkey D. Luffy. Sengoku was very headache, thinking of Garp, thinking of Dragon. Could it be Garp's grandson? It's quite similar. They have some descendants. Sengoku immediately contacted Garp. Cap, I have something to talk to you about. Soon, Carp walked leisurely to the office, sat on the sofa, crossed Erlang's legs, and ate Senbei, crunchy. Warring States said seriously, Cap, your grandson is inspired to become a pirate, right? Speaking of which, Carp also had a headache and was helpless. I can't help this kid. I understand, that's it, the back waves of the Yangtze River pushed the front waves. Let's not talk about strength, I don't know, but this overlord is domineering, even Minka will be affected. This made Garp startled. Domineering? Monka is affected? Carp shook his head decisively. Then the person you are talking about can't be my grandson. Monkey D. Luffy, isn't it? Sengoku wondered. With a thud, Garp jumped up from the sofa. Garp grabbed the information and looked at it, then his eyes widened. This name, as well as the photo on the document, is his grandson, Luffy. Garp was stunned. When did this kid wake up to be a domineering king? Although I haven't seen him for a while, even if I wake up soon after leaving, I won't be so powerful. At first, Garp shook his head decisively. It couldn't be Luffy. But now he found out that it was Luffy. As a grandfather, he knew Luffy, so he was very surprised. Warring States said solemnly, the reward must be released. It is an extremely dangerous existence. Carp, are you okay? Carp's face softened, he sat down again, and shook his head. What opinion can I have? Warring States Shingsei asked. His fighting materials are very few. All of them are tyrannical and domineering. To solve the naval soldiers, and to issue a reward to him, you must know his strength. Carp, I hope you can tell me seriously, your grandson, strength at what level? Carp didn't hide it, and said bluntly, I know, his strength, the bounty is 30 million. Warring States shook his head decisively, it's impossible to be so low, just this domineering is more than enough. Carp was helpless. Warring States, I'm not joking with you. After a brief hesitation, the Warring States decided, forget it, don't release the bounty first, learn more about it for a while, or send a high-capacity navy to find him. Carp, forget your words, and don't embarrass you. Carp is proud in his heart. He is indeed his grandson, and he is so powerful. But I am also worried in my heart, which makes the Navy attach great importance to it. What kind of existence will it send? After a brief moment of contemplation, the Warring States said, the king goes down to Kauai, Hawkeye, Jorakol Mihawk. If a sailor sees him appearing in the East China Sea, let him be. This made Carp shocked. Hawkeye. Carp felt unreliable. Let me go my own way. Is it realistic? You have to know his combat strength as soon as possible. Hawkeye is very suitable. Even if he doesn't catch it, it should be no problem for him to test the strength of the Straw Hat Boy. Immediately, Warring States began to notify subordinates to contact. Garp's face was nothing, but his heart was heavy. Luffy, don't fall down too soon. Episode 4. Warring States began to wait. After Hawkeye tried the strength of the Straw Hat Boy, he could issue a reward. The existence of such great potential must be paid attention to. Small wooden boat. Luffy is already familiar with Zoro, and he talked about the ability to teach space. Zoro was unbelievable after hearing it. It was amazing. 1 month outside, 1 year inside, and there are 2 teaching templates to choose from. This made Sauron's heart move, and he knew that he was still a long way from the world's greatest swordsman. Remembering the oath made to Guina to become the world's greatest swordsman, he must do it. Zoro was heartbroken and chose to enter the teaching space. Luffy chose to let Sauron enter, and in the next instant, Sauron entered, a vast white space. Good wait. Even if he had been exercising hard since he was a child, he felt that the environment was too harsh. However, there was an excited smile on the corner of Sauron's mouth, and his eyes were like a beast. Such an environment was suitable for a beast like him. Before entering, Luffy suggested that he should choose the template of Mihawk, the world's largest swordsman, and Roger, the pirate king. Roger's swordsmanship is also extremely powerful. Zoro understood and chose the Mihawk template. In the next moment, the figure was illusory, and the cold Mihawk with the black sword knight appeared. Although it was only an illusory figure, the aura made Sauron shake, as if looking up at a mountain, and he seemed very small. The illusory figure has only one consciousness, and that is teaching. He will not talk about other things, do more, and the task is only teaching. Illusory Mihawk didn't have much time to teach at first. After a few words, he disappeared. In the next moment, a baboon dressed like an eagle eye appeared. This is the power of the teaching space, and any sparring objects can emerge. Sauron was excited, grateful, and determined. Be here for 2 years and become stronger, Luffy, I won't let you down. Zoro began to practice, desperately, not inferior to Luffy, who practiced here before. Luffy started sailing alone and waited for Zoro to come out 2 months later. Luffy knew that at that time, it would be completely different. There was already a picture in his mind. The more robust Zoro had a scar on his left eye, and his momentum was stronger. 3 days later, Luffy came to a town. By a coincidence of fate, I saw Nami, who was being chased by pirates. Thief, return the chart to us. Don't run. Hand it over and spare your life. It's really looking for death. Nami glanced behind her eyes and was about to catch up. However, her eyes lit up, and she saw a figure in front of her. She was no stranger, and she had seen it on the Arita ship. Boss, save me. Nami shouted at Luffy. When he ran to Luffy's side, he hid behind Luffy. The 3 knife-wielding pirates frowned and had accomplices. Luffy went over domineering, and the 3 pirates fell to the ground. If you can solve it with Overlord color, try not to do it. Nami was stunned. It's amazing. What did you do? Nami introduced herself. I'm a thief who specifically targets pirates. Nami, would you like to cooperate with me? Luffy shook his head. Cooperation? No, I'm a pirate. Do you want to join my pirate group, my third partner? Nami looked around. The third one? What about the second one? The second one, I'll see you later. He's cultivating. Nami was not interested. Her heart was heavy. I don't have time. I have to make more money. Luffy felt that he had to speed up the progress, since he knew everything. You need money? Why? Although I know the reason, naturally, I can't act like I know, so I can only get into the topic faster. Nothing. Nami won't say, although the boy in front of him looks very powerful. But the other party is the Evil Dragon Pirates, who established the Evil Dragon Empire in the East China Sea and dominates the East China Sea. Luffy guessed. Did you encounter any difficulties? You are alone, so you must be good at sailing, right? I need a navigator. Nami was surprised. She didn't expect that she looked so smart that she could infer that her sailing ability was good. I won't tell you any more. I have to leave quickly, thank you. Nami wanted to leave, afraid that her fellow pirates would arrive. Luffy touched his stomach and said, I'm so hungry, please invite me to dinner. Okay, let's hurry up then. Soon, finding a restaurant, Luffy started to eat, and continued to find opportunities to chat. Nami's eyes were firm. No matter what, I have to earn 100 million Baileys. So, what do you want so much money for? Secret, I won't tell you. Nami looked at the chart in her hand with joy in her heart. As long as there is a chart of the Great Route, 100 million Bailey is not a dream. Seeing that Luffy was almost done eating, Nami wanted to leave and emphasized, don't think about letting me join. I hate pirates the most, and the only things I like are money and oranges. Okay, then I'll take you away. Luffy got up and left the restaurant with Nami. On a high-rise platform in the town is the Buggy Pirates. Captain Buggy found the thief. The subordinate with the binoculars saw it and reported it immediately. Bucky's eyes were cold. Use Bucky's cannonballs and warn her. She will be afraid and obediently send the chart. Understood, Captain Buggy. The muzzle was aimed at the street next to the street where Luffy and Nami were. Boom. The cannonball was fired, and the roar caught the attention of Nami and Luffy, who looked back. Turning back for a moment, Nami's eyes widened, her pupils contracted, and she was terrified. I saw where the shells passed. A string of houses were bombed, and in an instant, the kilometer-long street and houses were all blown to pieces. This destructive power made Nami feel terrified and dare not make any move, because the muzzle of the gun in the distance was already aimed at them. Bucky shouted with a loudspeaker, "Are you afraid? Give us the chart, or it will be blown to powder." Nami clutched the chart tightly and struggled, not wanting to give it, so the villagers would continue to be tortured. However, if you don't give it, you will die, and the villagers are still unable to be free. Nami could only bow her head in decadence and walk forward. However, just after taking a step, a hand fell on her shoulder. Nami looked back. It was Luffy. Episode 5. Nami looked at Luffy. Her expression was a little complicated, and there was a warmth in her heart. Nami puzzled. Why do you do this? Obviously you are a pirate. Luffy emphasized. Not all pirates are the same. This made Nami silent, lost in thought. At this time, Bucky was surprised that he didn't send the chart in a hurry. Soon Bucky realizes that something is wrong. Picking up the binoculars, Bucky noticed the straw hat on Luffy's head. This hat. Soon, a very angry figure appeared in his mind, the red-haired Shanks. It's Shanks' bastard's hat. Seeing this hat, Bucky couldn't help but think of when he was in the Roger Pirates. I often quarreled with Shanks. Once I stole the loot devil fruit and a treasure map, thinking about selling it at a good price to form a pirate group, but because of Shanks, I ate the devil fruit by mistake, and the treasure map was still there. Thrown into the sea. So, seeing this hat, Bucky was very angry. Fire, Bucky ordered, and another Bucky shell was fired. Nami's pupils contracted. Don't mind me. Run. I can't hide from my own strength, but I have seen the strength of the pirate in front of me, and I may be able to escape. Luffy picked up a stone and threw it at random. Whoosh. In an instant, the speed and power of the stone are extremely powerful. Boom. Bucky's artillery shells blasted away in midair, and the flames shot into the sky, apparently because of the stones that swept in quickly. Luffy obviously learned from Rayleigh. This stunned Bucky and the others on the building. What's the matter? Why did it explode in midair? I don't know, it's weird. Captain Bucky, did you see that? The crew was puzzled. Bucky naturally saw it, and a figure couldn't help but emerge in his mind, the deputy captain, Pluto Rayleigh. This hand just now is too similar. Continue to shoot gorgeously. Bucky thinks, can't just forget it. Boom boom boom. Bucky's shells blasted out one by one. Luffy threw stones from his hand, and the air bombing continued. This Bucky gritted his teeth angrily. Damn straw hat boy. Bucky is ready to do it himself, with a sharp blade between his fingers. The members of the Bucky pirates also prepared to fight, raising their knives and shouting, "Little guys, follow me." Bucky gave an order, and before he could finish speaking, his eyes suddenly widened. I saw that Luffy suddenly jumped up and put his right hand in front of his mouth to blow. Third gear. In an instant, Luffy's right hand became huge, and his hands and arms were instantly huge, like the arms of giants. Rubber rubber. Giant pistol. Boom. The huge fist slammed out, and with a roar, the building where the Buggy pirates was located was hit, collapsed directly, and rubble flew. Buggy and others were blasted away, screaming constantly, and buried in the rubble. Nami, who was behind Luffy, looked at this scene, and was already stunned, and subconsciously muttered to herself, okay, it's amazing. Luffy glanced back at Nami and gestured, let's go there, they should have a lot of treasure, don't you really need money? Nami's heart was touched, thinking about the brutal dragon, and then looking at Luffy in front of her. After a brief hesitation, Nami said sincerely, thank you, we will be partners in the future, so don't be so polite. Luffy and Nami walked over and began to search for the treasure of the Buggy pirates. However, because Buggy is a person with the ability to split the fruit, he was not seriously injured. Let this uncle fall down gorgeously. Buggy took the opportunity to sneak attack, separated his upper body from his lower body, and stabbed Luffy from behind. Luffy didn't look back, he punched back at will, his arms stretched out. In the next moment, Buggy's expression was painful, and his suspended upper body lay on the ground. Buggy didn't want to give up, but the next moment he was easily knocked off and disappeared into the sky. After Luffy and Nami's search was over, they went to the shore and left in a wooden boat. You need money, so start looking for treasure. Luffy's words made Nami nodded subconsciously, and she found that she was no longer against the pirate in front of her. Luffy and Nami started the sea voyage. With a navigator like Nami, Luffy will be much easier. The destination, the village of Xylob where Usopp is located. Because I was looking for treasure all the way, it was a little slower, and nearly 2 months passed. In the past 2 months, Luffy and Nami have become very close, like partners. Luffy looked forward to, Zoro is about to come out. After he comes out, Nami, you can go in now, or you can go in after you have settled the matter. Nami understands, Luffy told him that the mysterious teaching space can become powerful. Nami knows that strength is very important in this world. If she is strong, then the village will not be attacked by the dragon pirates. I want to become stronger, but I have to wait until the village affairs are resolved, the sooner, the better. In the next instant, Luffy's eyes lit up and he felt a powerful momentum. Luffy expects, come out. Episode 6. Whoosh. In the next instant, a figure appeared. Short green hair, green robe, black boots, 3 knives on the right side of the waist, a vertical scar on the left eye, and the left eye is closed. He is impressively Zoro, who has finished his training. Outside the past 2 months, inside is 2 years. Luffy, long time no see. Zoro misses Luffy very much. Luffy also understood and grinned. For Zoro, 2 years have passed. Nami understood, and her heart shook. There is really such a strange teaching space, 2 months outside and 2 years inside. Looking at Zoro, Nami has a kind of person who is not easy to mess with, like a beast. She is? Zoro looked at Nami, a little curious, guessing, our new partner. Luffy said, not quite yet, but it will be our partner. Luffy's vision, Zoro naturally knows that he can't be wrong. After getting to know each other, we know the names and are good at it. The 3 of them stood on the small wooden boat, looking a little crowded. Luffy looked forward to, I will change to a big ship soon, and there will be a pirate flag. Zoro smiled, it was inevitable. Luffy looked at Zoro curiously, looked up and down, and became stronger. Sauron, you must be very powerful now. I want to know how powerful you are. Luffy really wants to know. Although he knows the plot, maybe there are some changes in strength, compared to the original plot. After all, it was not only Hawkeye, the world's greatest swordsman who taught Zoro, but Roger, the Pirate King. Roger's swordsmanship is also extremely powerful, especially the name of the move, God avoids. It is so domineering that God will avoid it, not to mention its power. So, I don't know if Sauron has learned it. Zoro also understands why Luffy is so young, yet so powerful. Before Luffy's shot, it was beyond his understanding, and he was in a fog, but after cultivating in it for 2 years, he understood everything. Thinking back to his previous self, Zoro couldn't help laughing, a little bit of a frog at the bottom of the well. The world is too big, and he has seen it a little. Although there will be no other exchanges inside, but through the strength of Hawkeye and Roger, let him know that this world is very big, and there are people outside. In the past, I felt that the swordsmanship was good, and even if it was far from the world's largest swordsman, it would not be too far. But when he started to study, he was a little hit, the gap was too far, the difference between heaven and earth. At the beginning, even a baboon could not be beaten, and it was very hard. Now, he is confident in his own strength. I also understood why Luffy fainted if he didn't do it. Zoro is also curious about Luffy's strength, knowing that in this small place, it is difficult for Luffy to go all out. So the strength that Luffy showed before was definitely the tip of the iceberg. Both of them were curious about each other's strength, looked at each other and smiled, and had an idea together. That is to find an uninhabited island nearby and fight. Nami then learned what they were thinking, and began to navigate the search. Nami also wanted to know how powerful Luffy and Zoro are, and can they deal with the dragon pirates? Thinking of this, Nami felt that it was difficult. After all, Luffy and Zoro were just 2 of them. Naval Headquarters, Marineford, Office of the Marshal. Sengoku was in a good mood, and he breathed a sigh of relief. This made Garp, who was leisurely eating senbei, a little uneasy. Garp asked, Warring States, has Hawkeye responded? Warring States nodded. Well, I responded. He said he wouldn't catch it, but if you try it a little bit, you can. However, if you do it a little bit, it will be dead or alive, and he is not sure about this. He won't just because the other party will die. Close hand. Speaking of the back, Sengoku secretly observed Garp's expression. As he thought, Garp's face was gloomy, and his expression was very complicated. The heart is naturally angry and worried, but it cannot be fully expressed. As a friend, Sengoku also understands Garp's mood, and he doesn't say much when he sees such an expression. Garp could only sigh inwardly. Luffy, I hope you can survive this, otherwise, it's impossible to become One Piece or something. Although I really don't want Luffy to become the Pirate King, I don't want Luffy to die. The Warring States changed the subject. Not long ago, there was news that the Straw Hat Pirates had a new crew member, and now there are two. Garp relaxes a little, and has a partner. His grandson's vision is not bad. With a partner, facing Hawkeye, the chance of survival will be higher. After all, Hawkeye can't be serious. Therefore, Garp wanted his partner to be stronger, so he asked curiously, who is it? What's your strength? How much is the bounty? Warring States didn't care. A pirate hunter in the East China Sea has a little reputation in a small area in the East China Sea, and his name is Roronoa Zoro. In terms of strength, he has a bit of strength, but in places like the East China Sea, he is also sitting in the sky and watching the sky. The Great Route is nothing. The bounty is estimated to be 50 million Bailey. This made Garp brow twitching. 50 million Bailey. The bounty is also linked to strength. In this case, facing Hawkeye, Garp's heart was heavy, and he felt that his grandson Luffy and the crew Zoro were in danger. Episode 7. On an uninhabited island in the East China Sea, Nami looked at it with a telescope on the sea in the distance. Originally, Nami wanted to go to the island to see it, but Luffy reminded him to watch it here. Nami thinks it's not enough. This uninhabited island is also very large. It is equivalent to a city. Can't the battle range spread to the entire island, right? At that time, I thought it was alright. I went up to see it myself, and just stayed away. But both Luffy and Zoro asked themselves not to go to the island, so they could only watch it here. Looking through the binoculars, you can see that Luffy and Zoro are opposed to each other on the island. Zoro pulled out all 3 knives, held them in both hands, and bit one in his mouth. Zoro's fighting spirit rose, expecting, Luffy, we don't need to test, let's get serious. Luffy smiled and nodded, I think so too. Both of them know that they are very powerful now. After all, they have been cultivating for 2 years. Therefore, the temptation is exempted, and this battle was originally just to see the strength of each other. The two were ready to fight directly and earnestly. Zoro had already set up his posture, and Luffy suddenly made a move that Zoro and Nami from afar felt inexplicable. I saw Luffy stomping like a horse, squatting down with his head lowered, his left hand on his knee, and his right fist making contact with the ground. Second gear. With the sound of second gear, Luffy's calf moved like a spring. Under the surprised eyes of Zoro and Nami, Luffy's body turned red and steamed. In the second gear, use your feet or hands as a pump to boost blood flow and strengthen your body. After entering the second gear, with a snort, Luffy's hands became pitch black. Seeing this, Nami was puzzled. Why did her hands turn black? However, it was soon discovered that Sauron was the same, and the knife in his hand was also covered with a layer of black, becoming a black knife, which looked even sharper. Nami felt a little ignorant. What was this all about? Perhaps, after entering the teaching space, these will be understood. Rubber jet rocket launcher. Suddenly, a red afterimage swept across Luffy's body and came to Zoro in an instant, so fast that Nami's eyes still stopped where Luffy stood before. Luffy threw his fists. Zoro was shocked. So fast. Before he could counterattack, Zoro crossed his knives in front of him to block. With a bang, Sauron stepped back 20 meters, leaning against a boulder, and with a bang, the boulder collapsed. Zoro grinned, his fighting spirit rose, and his blood boiled. Luffy, I have to be serious too. At this time, Nami looked a little dumbfounded. What happened? She didn't react at all, it was too fast. Dao Lu Hong Kong bird. Zoro quickly drew his sword, and Nami was even more surprised, the speed was too fast. With the rapid drawing of the knife, a slash similar to that of a blue bird is issued. Whoosh! However, it was easily avoided by Luffy. Luffy reminded, Sauron, seriousness is not like this. Be careful then. Sauron bit the knife in his mouth and carried the 2 knives behind his back with both hands. Suddenly, a blue vindictive energy was condensed behind him, and there was a faint sound of a tiger. Under Nami's astonished gaze, a blue mighty tiger king appeared behind Zoro. 3 swords, extreme, tiger hunting, roar. As Zoro slashed out with his 2 knives, the tiger sounded majestic, and the blue tiger roared out. Luffy knew that Zoro was strong right now, so he wouldn't be careless. He put his right hand in front of his mouth, took a big breath, expanded his chest, and blew hard. Suddenly, the right hand and arm became huge, like a giant. This is what Nami has seen before, but this time is different because the entire giant arm is covered in black. Obviously, in the face of Zoro, Luffy was serious and had to use domineering. Before dealing with the Buggy pirates, there was no need to use domineering. Rubber giant bazooka. Whoosh! The huge black fists blasted out quickly like rocket shells, and the attack power of both was extremely powerful. Boom! The black giant fist collided with the blue tiger, stalemate. However, with Luffy's shout, the blue tiger was twisting, and with a puff, the blue tiger disintegrated, and the power of Luffy's punch was also relieved. Whoosh! Zoro jumped up and quickly came to the top of Luffy's head, his arms bulged in a circle, and Nami, who was watching in the distance, was surprised. How do you train? You already have muscles, but now your arms are bulging again. Although I haven't seen the power yet, I can feel that it is full of violence. The next knife is definitely very powerful, and it seems to be close. 3 knives flow, 1 gangly luo, 2 gangly luo, and 2 gang power slash. The muscles in his arms were strengthened, and Zoro slashed down with his swords. Luffy quickly retracted his hand, and on the way back, the giant fist shrank to its original size. At the same time, Luffy's right foot was huge, turned pitch black, and kicked upwards. Boom! The ground around Luffy cracked, dented, and rubble flew. The two figures shook out of each other, but then quickly collided with each other. The fierce battle made Nami a little dumbfounded, because it was difficult to catch it with the naked eye. Along with the battle, the roar continued, the sound of collision, the sound of boulders breaking, countless trees fell and flew, the whole island seemed to be shaking, big pits appeared, and wide cracks continued to spread. Soon, the entire island was in a mess. Nami now understands why Luffy and Zoro didn't let themselves go to the island. They're amazing. Nami is more aware of the strength of Luffy and Zoro, and at the same time yearns for the teaching space. Even if he can't compare to Luffy and Zoro after his own teaching, he will definitely be much stronger than now. You have to become stronger, whether it is to save the villagers, or become a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Episode 8. The fight lasted for 3 hours, and it was coming to an end. Luffy jumped up, his huge right hand stretched back, covered with a domineering jet black armed color, and then quickly pulled back and smashed downwards. Rubber Thor. Zoro knew that this move was the most powerful from the beginning to the present. 3 knives flow, the profound meaning, the blue dragon sings, and the flowing water. Zoro sent out crisscrossing slashes, intertwined into an illusory blue dragon, and roared out as if composed of flowing water. Boom! The roar broke out, and the terrorist force swept away, and everything within a radius of 100 meters was emptied and turned into nothingness. Luffy and Zoro stopped fighting because it was basically clear. Luffy said, "Sauron, you still have a lot of cards." Zoro nodded, "Well, Luffy, you too." Yes. It's just learning from each other, not a deadly battle. Both of them naturally have many more powerful moves that are useless. Nami came to see the end of the battle, and when she heard the conversation between the two, her heart shook. I thought I was going all out, but there are still trump cards. Wasn't it the strongest attack in the battle just now? And stronger? This makes Nami more yearning and firm. I want to become stronger. Waiting for the end of the village, I also want to enter the teaching space. Luffy nodded, of course. Leaving the uninhabited island, the voyage continues. Nami felt that although Luffy and Zoro were great, they still lacked a lot. Nami said bluntly, if the strength is not enough, it is too messy to start sailing like this, and go to the Great Route. However, during this period of contact, I also learned about Luffy, and it is indeed a mess. Luffy sat on the bow of the boat, eating an apple, felt that it made sense, and nodded. Well, it's too messy to eat like this. Sure enough, you still need some meat. It's not enough to only eat fruit every day. Zoro, who was lying down, said, by the way, it would be better if there was wine. Nami was speechless. What are you talking about? I didn't mean that. The Great Route, but the most dangerous place in the world, is not strong enough, not to mention Luffy, you are a devil fruit person. Besides, there are many powerful pirates who have to find One Piece, and ride a powerful pirate ship. Luffy believes, we will also have a great ship, and more crew members. Chefs, doctors, and musicians are indispensable. Nami was thinking of a better boat. No matter how good her navigation skills are, it is useless for such a boat. At this time, Luffy saw an island in the distance with a town, and his eyes lit up, ready to eat meat. Zoro couldn't wait, and whine. This made Nami put her hand on her forehead, giving her a headache. You two are really. Soon, the three of Luffy went ashore, and Luffy found out that it was Shiluabu village. As soon as I went up, I heard a shout. Nami and Zoro were not familiar with it, but Luffy was familiar with this voice, and it was naturally Usopp's. There are pirates, everyone run away. The pirates are here. There are pirates. Soon, Usopp was chased and beaten, and he was looking forward to it, excited, and ran away. Ha ha ha, come after me if you have the ability. The three of Luffy stayed in Xylob village, went to eat and drink, and then met Usopp. After 2 days of familiarity, I also learned about the conspiracy of the Croc pirates. Usopp went to the ramp. As for Sauron, he knew that Lucci was wrong. Usopp was a little flustered, but what about Luffy and Zoro? Watching the Black Cat pirates landing, Usopp calmed himself down. Police. I warn you, get out of here now. Otherwise, I'll beat you to nothing with my 10,000 partners. The people from the Black Cat pirates laughed. One stop 10,000? Haha, tricks to deceive children. A guy like him can have such a powerful partner? Pirates don't believe it. The hypnotist praised Zongao angrily. Don't try to scare us. Do you think we are idiots? Little ones, come on. Yes. Captain Zongao. Immediately, nearly 100 pirates rushed up the slope with knives. This made Usopp panic and picked up the slingshot, but with so many people, it was impossible for him to deal with it alone. Zongao sneered, boy, you are finished. Usopp kept shooting, and one person fell down, screaming, but there were too many people and they were about to come, and he couldn't escape. Is it over? Damn. Usopp was very unwilling. Die. The pirate approached, and the knife in his hand was raised, ready to cut. However, when he slashed, Usopp closed his eyes and felt finished. Call. The invisible momentum erupted, time seemed to freeze, the wielding knife stagnated, and nearly 100 pirates rolled their eyes one by one. Bang bang bang. The sound of falling to the ground continued, and Usopp was stunned. There was no pain, but a series of falling sounds. Usopp opened his eyes, his pupils contracted, and he was extremely shocked. 100 pirates broke down below, and they all fell. What's going on? Whoosh, boom. A figure descended from the sky and appeared in front of Usopp, with his left hand on the ground and his right hand on the straw hat on his head. Looking at the back, Usopp's eyes lit up. Zango was horrified. What did he do? Why did 100 people collapse in an instant? He obviously didn't do anything, but why did he faint? And he was a hypnotist like himself. Impossible, not hypnotized at all. Zangao stepped back subconsciously, panicked in his heart, and said solemnly, You. Who are you? Luffy stood up, raised his head, and the face under the straw hat grinned. I am his partner who can block 10,000, Monkey D. Luffy. Episode 9. Zangao was like a ghost and didn't understand. What the hell did you do? Why did they all fall? Is there a drug in the air? Luffy didn't explain much. The Overlord is domineering. Naturally don't know this level. Whoosh. Luffy quickly moved to Zango's side, and he didn't need to open second gear to deal with this level. With a punch, Zangao flew upside down in a shrill scream, spewing out a large mouthful of blood, hitting the ground, and was seriously injured and was about to die. He only felt that all the internal organs in his body were shattered, and he was about to die. Why does such a strong guy appear? Zangao realized the condition of his body, scared and desperate. At this moment, Nami came, and it can only be said that Luffy was too fast. Nami looked around. Luffy and Usopp were all there. What about Zoro? Nami asked. Luffy, where did Zoro go? Luffy was not surprised. We've been together for a few days, you understand. Nami suddenly remembered, stroked her forehead, and understood. Okay, got it. Zoro is a lunatic, obviously lost. At this time, the remaining 300 members of the Black Cat Pirates disembarked from the boat. To deal with this kind of rogue, Luffy has always been an overlord and can solve it, so he won't waste time. Overlord's color erupted, and before disembarking, they all fainted. At this time, Zoro came and exhaled. Am I not late? Nami was speechless. Fortunately, Luffy came early. Zoro looked at the people who were falling down in front of him and felt a little boring. Maybe your current strength will be boring for a while? Whizzing. At this moment, the two figures rushed to the bottom of the hillside very fast, and they came out of the boat. Zoro took a step forward. Luffy, leave it to me. It is good. Two figures, one thin and one fat, are cat brothers, Sam and Budge, both with cat-like hands and cat ears. The bounty for these two people is 7 million Bailey. Pirate Hunter, Roronoa Zoro, we know. But, against our cat brothers, even you will lose. Sam was very interested, and felt that defeating this little-known pirate hunter in the East China Sea would give him a sense of accomplishment. Butch glanced at Luffy, surprised. He is very powerful, but leave it to the boss to solve it. Yes, we'll take care of this guy. The situation is not good now, so the cat brothers directly start together, one left and one right. The speed is extremely fast, swept to the left and right sides of Sauron, sharp claws slashed out, even boulders can be torn apart. The Catman brothers looked at Sauron and laughed inwardly. Seeing that Sauron didn't seem to react, he didn't draw his sword, not even one. They knew that Sauron was a swordsman, and this was obviously because they were too fast to react. However, Zoro did not draw his sword because he felt that it was not necessary. When the Cat brothers felt that they could shred Sauron in the next moment, they saw that Sauron's arms suddenly lifted and spread out, and suddenly swirled and waved. No knife flow, tornado. Suddenly, the tornado whistled, with great power. After all, it was the current Sauron. The Catman brother's body was suddenly rolled up uncontrollably, constantly spinning, screaming shrill and screaming, and his body was tearing. What? Puff. Soon, the Cat brothers were torn to pieces by the tornado, which soon dissipated. This stared at Usopp behind him. It's amazing. It took so long to get it done, it turned out to be trouble. At this moment, a figure swept over, and a low voice sounded. A black suit, glasses, a big back, and sharp claws on each of his hands and 5 fingers. It's Chloe, with a bounty of 15 million Baileys. Luffy looked at Chloe, and said very easily, if you solve you, it's over. Hearing this, Chloe laughed angrily. Ha 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 ha, do you underestimate me? Wait, I will carefully chop you up now. Although angry, Crow also knew that these guys in front of him were not simple. After all, his crew all fell, and the Cat brothers were easily solved. However, he is Chloe. In this sea, no one can be better than himself, so let him solve them by himself. Crow didn't try, he went all out and used his ultimate move. Under Usopp's and Nami's surprised eyes, Crow seemed to be listless, with his hands down, his head lowered, his body slightly downward, and his hands began to sway from side to side as he walked. Nami was puzzled. What is he doing? Usopp was a little disturbed and reminded, he is the Black Cat Pirate's Crow, you have to be careful. Although he saw the strength of Luffy and Zoro, Usopp was still worried. Dead ladle. With a low drink from Crow, he suddenly disappeared, as if it disappeared out of thin air and did not exist. Nami knew that she must be nearby, but she was surprised because she couldn't see a figure and couldn't hear any sound. Usopp was worried. Sauron frowned slightly. Luffy naturally knew that this was a combination of silent steps combined with indiscriminate attacks, and Chloe's strongest ultimate move. Because it is silent, fast, and indistinguishable, Crow himself is attacking without anyone knowing. Now that the crew is down, it doesn't matter. He would do it even when the crew was still there. What? Ah. Suddenly, screams and screams continued, all from those who were stunned. He screamed because he felt pain and was attacked. Puff, puff, blood splattered everywhere, and Nami looked at it, shocked. How come wounds appeared out of thin air on them? Usopp is also puzzled. Why? Obviously no one was attacking them, but one by one there were continuous cuts and blood splattered, showing the bones. Sauron narrowed his eyes and kept moving, explaining, "It's because the speed is too fast that you can't see, and you move silently, as if there is nothing." Nami suddenly felt that Zoro and Luffy could be caught, so it was Chloe's ghost. What a cold-blooded guy who is constantly killing his own crew. Nami was disgusted and couldn't help thinking of the evil dragon, just as cruel. Episode 10. Silently, cutting constantly, Usopp was a little worried. Luffy said, "Nami, Usopp, stay away." Usopp and Nami nodded, which means that Luffy can't solve Chloe in a short time. Sauron was surprised. Luffy's strength can naturally be captured. After all, he must be as superb as himself if he is domineering. Therefore, Sauron will not have the same idea as Usopp. The screams continued, and Luffy walked towards the bottom of the broken road, and closed his eyes. This made Sauron understand. I plan to use this guy to hone his arrogance. This is indeed Luffy's idea. Although the domineering has been mastered to perfection, there is still a little gap between seeing the short-term future, so, can't miss it. After closing his eyes, Luffy began to feel it. Swoosh, swish. Immediately, they were cut, but they were all dodged, without being hurt in the slightest. Usopp and Nami watched from a distance. Luffy was dodging left and right in a relaxed and unrestrained manner, as if he was dodging something. They knew that Luffy was dodging silent attacks. Although they couldn't see it, the stone walls on both sides were cut, and traces appeared, which let the two know that Chloe's attack was still going on, but it just couldn't hurt Luffy. Just like that, half an hour passed. Crow was also exhausted and ready to stop. At this speed, he attacked indiscriminately, and he didn't know who he was attacking. But, don't worry, after so long, everyone here must have died. It's over, I'm about to see their corpses in pieces. Crow stopped, panting, and looked forward at the same time. Suddenly, Chloe's eyes widened in disbelief. Luffy stood in front of him, unscathed, and his clothes were not damaged in the slightest. How is it possible? Crow couldn't believe it. Glancing at the other people, the three in the distance were even finer. Luffy smiled and thanked. "Thank you, let me temper my sense of domineering a little bit." Seeing the domineering look? Although Crow didn't know what it was, he didn't understand, but he could hear that he was using his killer move as a sparring partner. Whetstone. This made Crow's heart rage, but he was also afraid. Hateful. With the last of his strength, Crow moved quickly, silently, and wanted to escape. However, Luffy swept in front of him in an instant. His fists were pitch black, and he threw it out fiercely. Boom. What? Chloe flew out, his abdomen sunk in directly, and a big mouthful of blood mixed with broken internal organs spurted out, flying hundreds of meters away, smashing through many trees and rocks along the way. After stopping, Crow was pale and dying. This made him unacceptable. The Black Cat Pirates himself was instantly killed by a teenager. Why is the gap so big? Chloe's head tilted, and he couldn't rest his eyes. Usopp adores so much, and that's the end of it. Nami was very happy, and she ran to the Black Cat pirate ship for the first time, and was even happier, because she had a lot of treasure. Usopp looked at the vast sea, and made a decision. I've been hesitating, but after seeing you guys, I made up my mind. As a man, I should go to the vast ocean. So, I'm going to leave the village, become a pirate, and join the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy was happy, welcome to join. Then, Usopp went home to clean up. Kia knows it's over, she's very grateful, and does what she can. Seeing that Luffy and his boat are still small wooden boats, they decided. 3 days later, on the coast of the village of Silab, a light sailboat was docked here, and Luffy and others came. Looking at the sailboat in front of him, Luffy sighed in his heart, the Golden Mary. Kia hopes, I hope you will accept it. This is my thanks to you. The person in charge of designing the boat introduced, although the style is a bit old, but the skeleton structure, the light sailboat with the central rudder of the jib at the stern, it is called the Golden Mary. The designer continued, let me talk about the operation method, first of all in terms of power start adjustment. Nami interrupted, just tell me. Luffy, Zoro, Usopp began to admire the boat. Luffy praised, what a great boat, especially this bow, so cool. Kia said softly, everything that can be used for sailing has been loaded on the boat. Luffy didn't say more polite words, he boarded the boat with Zoro, Nami, and Usopp, and Yang Fan set sail. On the deck, Luffy and the others were discussing and drawing the pirate flag. Usopp raised his hand and said, leave it to me. I'm a talented painter. I used to paint graffiti on the walls of the village. Then, the black pirate flag with white skulls, crossed skulls, and the top of the skulls is the same straw hat as Luffy. Luffy was satisfied, very good, that's all, Usopp, let's draw it on the canvas as well. It is good. Soon, a larger one was drawn on the canvas, so that it looked decent. Nami sighed, "This is like a pirate ship." The voyage continued, Luffy yearned, and there were already 4 people on board. Luffy knew that the next partner, Sanji, should also go to the restaurant on the sea. "But, you will meet someone. That is, Hawkeye." Luffy doesn't know what will happen after encountering it, but he does know one thing, that is, it will change if it is different from what he knows.